Hi, welcome to the 2021 B2B Forum presented by MarketingProfs. This is What, Why, and How Analytics Foundations of B2B Marketing. I am Katie Robbert, joined by Chris Penn. We are the co-founders
Hello.
of Trust Insights. So Chris, on today's agenda, what do we got? We have, let's see, at the end of this session, you will be able to create a B2B analytics strategy using Google Analytics, explain why things happened, and use advanced attribution analysis. Use predictive content marketing analytics for forecasting your B2B content calendar, and use prescriptive content analysis to understand what content truly boosts conversion. So, I don't know, Chris, you ready to dive right in?
Let's do it. I think probably the way to frame all this out is that there's sort of a maturity with analytics, right? There's the foundational stuff, the infrastructure, the stuff you got to get right. If we're thinking about cooking, right, this would be like having the right appliances, having the right ingredients, knowing what outcomes you're looking for, and then you get into what was called descriptive analytics. What happened, right? Website traffic was up, email traffic was down, etc. Then we get into things like why did something happen? How do we fix it? And then we advance into things like predictive analytics. Now what? What do we do now that we know these things? What should come next? And the important part for folks to remember is that the ROI of your marketing improves as your marketing maturity improves. So if you're looking to get started just measuring things, it's going to be a little while before you see a return on investment in that, because you've got to get the basics in place, right? You can't start baking great cakes if you don't even have a stove yet, right? You kind of need that oven, and it's going to be a while before you can do stuff like that. So do be patient. So at the beginning of this process, we start off with Google Analytics, right? It's sort of the basis. One of the things that has been such a change in the last year, so it's been almost a year since Google announced it, is that the Google Analytics that most people are familiar with is called Google Analytics 3 or Universal Analytics. And Google made it to be sort of a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of analytics, where you collect data with it, with the tracking code, you analyze your data in there, and you do your reporting. And for those folks who've used it, of course, it looks very familiar. It's all in one. Well, Google made some really, really big changes when they rolled out Google Analytics 4 in October 2020. And the really big change is this change in design philosophy, where now instead of one tool trying to do it all, and as you know, I'm sure from having worked in Google Analytics, not necessarily successfully, they said we're going to let each of these tools in our platform do the thing and it does best. So Tag Manager, that's where you're going to do your data collection now, configuration, goals, and stuff. Google Analytics is a true analysis tool in version 4. And then Google Data Studio is where reporting should live, so that you only have people who are really doing heavy analysis in Google Analytics itself. And then for everybody else who gets reports out of Google Analytics, it's going to move to Data Studio. So one of the things that creates is a challenge for folks who may not have been using these other pieces to now upgrade your processes and how you train people to use the new suite.
And so, regardless of whether you're using Google Analytics 3 or Google Analytics 4 or a combination of both, you need to get that foundation, that infrastructure set up correctly in order to be able to understand your ROI of your marketing. Because without that foundation, whether you want to use a cooking analogy or a construction analogy, you're sitting on nothing. So you're mixing ingredients without a bowl, or you're building a house without a floor. And neither of those things are going to turn out really good for you.
That's true. And when you do get it right, what the new tools can do, it's pretty amazing. So this is Google Analytics 4, the new attribution analysis. And this now shows you at source level, at medium level, or at campaign level, even just individual pieces of content or campaigns, the beginning, the middle, and the end, the top, middle, and bottom of your funnel, and what's moving people along. So when you get things right in Google Analytics 4, this is what you can expect to see. So really important. That is the foundation. You got to get this done first. If you don't get this done, you can't build on anything else.
And Just as a pro tip, do not abandon Google Analytics 3 for Google Analytics 4. We highly recommend running them in parallel and getting them both fixed up correctly so that you are comparing the two data sets almost as a one-to-one, because the two systems right now behave quite differently and have different features. And so you want to make sure that your data is matching as closely as possible in both systems, and that Google Analytics 4 is in some ways just running in the background of your main Google Analytics 3 until Google decides to shut off one or the other. So definitely run them in parallel. Do not abandon one for the other.
Yeah. That said, Google Analytics 4 is an especially good idea if you are a company that has a website and a mobile app. If you've got
Mhm.
those two things, it is a much better solution, even though it's not fully really out of beta. If you have a mobile app, it's definitely the way you want it to go. So that's the foundation part, and getting it right is really important. The next level up is basic reporting. Katie, you want to talk about essentially what basic reporting is?
Yeah, it's what happened. And it is surprising the number of companies who aren't able to explain what the heck happened. What did we do? Where have we come from? What's our baseline? And so basic reporting can be in a PowerPoint, it can be in an Excel sheet. What we highly recommend, though, to make your life easier and to save your sanity, is to use Google Data Studio. So Google Data Studio natively connects to all of its own um, properties. So Google Analytics, Search Console, ads, YouTube, et cetera, anything that's within that Google marketing platform. And then there are connectors for other data sets, such as your social media platforms and other analytics collection platforms. What I would highly recommend is you get the basics into a report like this. So this report is broken down by goals, KPIs, and metrics. And so what this helps you do is tell that story top to bottom, left to right, of the things that are most important, because in United States at least, it's how we read. We read top to bottom, left to right. And so you want the most important number in that top left-hand corner. And in this example, you have revenue, goal completions, users, and URL clicks. And so in this example, those are the most important metrics, the KPIs that the stakeholder or the business has decided, these are the things that I absolutely need to know. Is it going up in green or is it going down in red? And so, save yourself some sanity and automate this piece. And so that's the basics of reporting. Like, what are the basic metrics that you need to know the health of your campaign, your company, your efforts, your content, whatever the thing is?
And one of the tips that we would offer here is, when you're putting together any kind of dashboard or report, to really spend some time collecting what are called user stories or user journeys or use cases, where you're trying to figure out what does a person need to get out of their reporting, because in a lot of cases, there is no such thing as like the one report that answers every question. For a lot of people,
Mhm.
it's going to be very different. So Katie, what's a user story?
So user story or a persona statement is essentially, it's a simple sentence that helps you in some ways shortcut a long process of requirements. And so the sample user story, the persona statement that we use is, as a parentheses persona, I want to take action so that outcome. And so what this does is it tells you the intent of someone and what they want. And so, as the CEO of Trust Insights, I want to know how many goal completions we're getting so that I can understand um, our lead pipeline, and I might know that our goal completions are people filling out our contact form. Um, as a marketing director, I want to know how many users are coming to our website so that I know if our website is effective or if I should, you know, pony up more money to fix the website. There's a lot of different user stories out there. And so asking people what they need to see and why is a really great way to put together your basic reporting so that you can answer those questions of what happened. If you can't answer what happened and you're already moving on to the next phase, it's going to be a mess.
Exactly. So my user story for this was, as an author, I need to see what channels people are buying my books on so that I know where to do my marketing, right? And in this case, I apparently just need to send more email because I sold a lot of books in August. Okay, so that's dashboarding. Next, we need to figure out, why did things happen? And this is where we get into attribution analysis. Now, for a brief moment of word nerding, if you will, attribution comes from Latin, right? Ad intribere, which is what giving tribute towards something. What do you give credit to? And all we're really trying to figure out here is, why are we seeing what we're seeing in our data? We're seeing conversions are up. Great. Why? What happened in the channels or the traffic or even the content that led to this outcome? So this is an example of an attribution analysis. This is a multi-touch attribution analysis, the one that we built based on Google Analytics data. And it works kind of like a basketball game, if you think about it. There's folks who score baskets a lot, but there's also all the people who help get the ball to that person so that they can score. If you watch like the Golden State Warriors, everyone needs to get the ball to Steph Curry so they can fling it halfway down the court and score a 3-point basket. So in that analogy, in your marketing channels, just because a channel isn't the last thing that somebody does before converting doesn't mean that it's not important. And so this is a multi-touch version of that to say, in this case, for Trust Insights, this is our July report. And what we see here is email marketing is 2/3 of our conversions. So we need to know that in order to say, okay, well, how should we be prioritizing email marketing? Should we be investing more time in it? Should we be investing less time in it? Email marketing takes up about 3 to 4 hours of our work week, and for 2/3 of our conversions to come out of it, that's actually a pretty good return on investment. On the other hand, we do have a YouTube show. We do every Thursday at 1:00, and it's only 1% of our conversions. So that takes up about 3 hours of our week. 3 people for an hour. So, Katie, when you see something like this, how do you use it to make a decision?
Well, I go back to that first report at the base reporting and look at the total number of goal completions. And my first thought is that up or down? So that's what happened. And this is why it happened. And so, if my conversions overall are down and my YouTube stats are down, for example, they're not contributing as much to goal conversions, I know that I need to decide, do I need to put even more effort into the YouTube show, or do I need to leave it where it is or cut it altogether? So that's sort of my three scenarios that I would play out. With email, I would say, great, it's working. Let's just keep doing what we're doing and not, tune that dial up or down. Just leave it alone and focus on all of the other things that we could be doing to increase conversions.
Right. And this technology works not only with the sources, the mediums, the channels, essentially, of what's driving your marketing, but it also works with content as well. You can see inside the raw data of Google Analytics what content people browse on their path to conversion. So again, for our company, we see webinar of the first 4 most converting types of content are recent webinars we've done on delivering reports and customer journey keynotes and Instagram and dashboarding. And so we know these are pieces of content that we need to keep promoting because they're doing a good job. On the other hand, when we look far down at the bottom of the list here, we have some stuff that some social media influencer benchmarks. It might be time to retire that content if it's just not performing anymore.
So when we think about all of these pieces together so far, we've had our foundation, which is our website traffic tracking. That's Google Analytics. And so using that data, we can then see, once somebody is on our website, which pages are leading them to convert. And so for us, a conversion is filling out a form and raising your hand and saying, hey, I want to know more, or I want to work with you. And so, Chris, you're absolutely right. If I was a client looking at this, I would say, all right, I have my list of pages that I need to make sure are kept up to date and are refreshed, and the images and the content. And I have my list of pages that I can probably think about, archiving, retiring, or I don't need to optimize because they are 3 years old and they're not doing anything for us anymore. And so it's a really good way to start to prioritize the way that you keep your website up to date, because these are the pages that should be working for you. So for example, right smack in the middle, our contact page, it's there, it's working. And if it wasn't showing up on this report at all, that would be a problem. That would be an indicator that something was probably broken, because that's literally all you can do from that page.
Exactly. On the flip side, the other thing you can look for is hidden gems. Hidden gems in your website that can drive a lot of conversions, but may not necessarily be recipients of a lot of traffic. So that social media influencer benchmarks post, even though it didn't drive a ton of conversions, it takes only 4 visits to that page before somebody converts. Whereas if we look, say, at our attribution modeling show that we did on YouTube, it takes 525 visitors before somebody converts. So if I wanted to see, maybe this page here, maybe that should go on the optimization list, because if it's efficient, and we haven't been sending traffic to it for a couple of years now, for obvious reasons, a couple of years old. If we tune it up, it might top the charts again. So the flip side of our analysis is to say, okay, maybe we can tune these things up. You can find some hidden gems in here that might be things to re-promote, put back in newsletters and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so it's sort of there's 2 sides to every story type of analysis.
Exactly. So that covers the what happened and the why. Now we have to move into now what? What could we do next? And again, word nerd time. Prediction is essentially saying something beforehand to estimate that a thing's going to happen in the future. Something's going to happen down the road. Here's an example. This is one of our favorite types of forecasts, using what's called time series forecasting, a type of machine learning. We give our software a data series, in this case, people searching for Outlook out of office or out of office message, and forecast it forward. So we are here. This is October right now. And right around this time of the year, that the searches for that term are lowest, which means people are in the office. Fast forward right to mid-November and then late December, people are searching like crazy for these terms. What are they about to do? They're about to go on vacation. They're about to go out of the office. They're trying to figure out how to turn this thing on, which means that we should not be sending them email here. We should be sending them email here. So at the end of this month, so we can use this to plan ahead. And this technology, this technique works on any kind of time series data. So here's an example from Google Analytics, taking the Google Analytics data we've been talking about in the foundation stage and in the diagnostic stage, and now saying, okay, what would happen if I forecasted forward my traffic for these channels for the rest of the year? If I could forecast that, or I could forecast even my goal conversions, if there's enough of them, I could know what's likely to happen. And in that case, for example, here, email, this is saying in the first week of October, you might have a dip. So what could I do to offset that if I don't want that traffic gap there?
Well, and it reinforces why needing all of those other pieces in place is so important, because, my husband likes to joke that I can predict the past like nobody else. And so that's one of the things that he likes to say to me. And it's funny because we're always, as marketers, stuck in trying to change what happened. Yes, we need to know what happened, but no, we cannot change it. We need to just sort of say, okay, we understand what happened, but now we need to look forward. So using this predictive forecast technology, we can say, we understand everything behind that line is what happened. We can't change it. It's only going to inform what we do moving forward. And that's the only thing that we can really focus on at this point, because you can't change what's behind that line. And so if we know we're going to have a dip in email, in the beginning of October, we have a couple of decisions to make. We can either let it ride and say, okay, it's going to pick back up again based on seasonality. We can, try the technique of sending even more email to see if that, helps, smooth out that dip. Or we can focus on another one of our channels and say, maybe we can make up those conversions with something else.
Exactly. Maybe that's something else as search. Here's an example of using search terms and forecasting forward. So this week for MarketingProfs, in terms of the terms that are going to be topping people's interest: digital marketing, marketing strategy, email marketing. And obviously this changes when you look 3 weeks down, 3 months down, in December, marketing strategy, really drops off. So if we wanted to create content, social media campaigns, email campaigns around these terms, week by week, we can figure out what are the most important terms that are going to be that week and make a content calendar that's predictive around it.
And so in doing that, you're sort of bringing the whole picture of everything together. You have the infrastructure, you know what people are doing when they get to your website, you know how they're getting there, and you know what they care about and why. And now you can create the things that they really want to know, and it becomes that full cycle. And so, Chris, if we want to be known for marketing strategy and we know it's going to pick up sometime toward the end of the year, we should be ready with all the content that answers what is it, why is it, how do I, when do I, where do I, all of those different helpful questions, and answering that, and make sure that it's ready for when we are bringing people to our website through those various channels, and making sure then we're taking that content and pushing it back out on those channels that are working for us, through our email channels, through our search channels, through our social channels.
Exactly. So the important thing here is that everything we've shown today is built on data from open properties like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Trends, and then using open source machine learning technology, the programming language R, and then tools like Tableau, for example. However, if you'd like to do some of this stuff and you feel like maybe you'd like to have it done for you, we're very happy to have partnered with MarketingProfs as part of the MarketingProfs DNA program. So everything that's been in this presentation is something that you can work with MarketingProfs and us to get done for your company.
And good news, it will be myself and Chris. So you'll get the Chris and Katie show all day long.
And if you've got questions about anything we've talked about in this presentation, our contact information is here. Feel free to reach out to us. If you want to join our free Slack community, it's about 2,000 and change other marketers and talk about these topics and others. We're happy to have you. But thanks for showing up for our talk here at MarketingProfs, the B2B Forum. Hopefully in the coming years, we'll get a chance to meet in person. But for now, we hope that you stay safe and well, and we look forward to working with you.